Imagine it's the early 2000s. Can you think way back then with me? What were we dealing with? Y2K was a thing that just passed. My friends and I, we just finished debating over whether we should stick with Windows 98 or upgrade to ME, and we were saved, luckily, because XP came along. But way back then, almost 25 years ago, it was a bit of an era where there were these outdated stereotypes and misconceptions, especially within the world of global health and economics. You might be thinking, Mark, what are you talking about? Global health and economics? Well, stay with me, because in that world, there was a man at the time, Dr. Hans Rosling, who has since passed away, but he was a Swedish physician. He was a statistician, and this is a man who had a mission, a global mission. He wanted to debunk the myths and the widespread beliefs that overpopulation in developing countries was somehow unresolvable. It's something that couldn't be fixed. He wanted to fight with the common belief that developing, quote unquote, these developing countries, also called third world countries at the time, many people somehow thought that they were doomed to remain in a state of perpetual poverty. And his mission was to show the world, to show governments, to show decision makers, to show leaders that within these data sets, there were these little pieces of unrecognized progress that we could learn from, that could impact decision making, that could change the way that people looked at global health and economics. Now, Rosling's work really, in 2006, blew up on the global stage because he released a TED Talk about this that went viral. I remember watching it 17 years ago. I remember seeing it time and time again. And Rosling's work really kicked off a bit of a revolution in this space because it turned these opaque numbers into clear, compelling narratives. In fact, his approach to being able to break down these really complex data sets was revolutionary because he made the complex so simple. And he did it in a way through story and through data visualizations that no one else was doing at the time. Now, the reason why I'm sharing this story isn't just because his contributions have completely changed the way that the world and governments and decision makers approach economics and developing countries or any of that stuff. I think his story, better than anyone else, underscores the need for you and for I and for all of us today in business to have a clear, story-driven communications, especially in environments where complexity can really overshadow truth, or where, frankly, it's just really hard to get people excited about things. Now, you may not be a statistician, which is a word I have trouble saying. You're likely not battling global misconceptions about anything that you're working on. But chances are in your work, in your career, and in the work you're doing towards achieving your business goals, clarity in communications, being able to get people excited, being able to influence them, being able to pitch them, plays a major role in your success. And that is what we're going to talk about today. In this episode, we're going to talk about how to create and deliver ridiculously effective pitches and elevator speeches. We're going to talk about why confused people never say yes. And we're going to do that with today's guest, Sam Horn. Now, Sam is a completely one-of-a-kind communication specialist, and she is an expert at being able to help people say and help businesses and help everyone design and deliver one-of-a-kind presentations and pitches and books and business ideas and brands and so much more. And so I want to welcome you to the How to Sell More podcast, where each week we dig into one of four pillars of sales success. We talk about branding, we talk about marketing, sales, and customer experience. And we do that to help B2B leaders face the number one challenge that every company struggles with, and that is growing revenue. I'm your host, Mark Drager. Let's get into it. Sam Horn, there were two things that you said the other day when I heard you speak, and I thought, I have got to try and figure out a way to get you onto the How to Sell More podcast. And here were the two things that you said. One, and I wrote this down, get people to care about what you care about. And the second I wrote down, and I believe you said it, so I hope you did, make the complex simple. Mm-hmm. Make the complex simple. Get people to care about what you care about. I find that in sales and marketing and branding and advertising, like that should be our number one goal, our number one focus. And yet so few people are able to crack that nut. Why do you think that is?
Well, we're just, Mark, we don't spin wheels, do we? So we're going to jump right in. First thing, I hope people have paper and pen in front of them. If you prefer your digital device, go ahead and do that unless you're driving. And let's just show.
Because I will also say, if you are driving, if you're on a treadmill right now, if you are listening, At the end, I will give you a direction. I will create a simple visual of what we're about to work through. And so at the end, we'll let you know how you can get a copy of that.
Okay, excellent. Okay, then here's what we're going to do to follow up on you just said. Mark, we're going to make verbiage visual. We're going to make concepts concrete, right? We're going to turn ideas into images and how we do it. Right now, everyone listening, watching, put a vertical line down the center of your page. People say, how does your brain work? I juxtapose everything. I think it is the quickest way to make complex ideas crystal clear. So over on the left, please put infobesity on the top of the left-hand column, infobesity. Wah, 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 wah. It's explanations that go in one ear, out the other, right? Over on the right, put intrigue. Over on the left, put complex, because, these are sophisticated decision makers in the marketing and sales space. It's like sometimes we're talking about things that are very complicated, and the longer we explain, the faster we lose people, right? Over on the right, put clear. Now, Mark, I want everyone to think of a situation coming up. This is a high-stakes situation. They're going to be pitching a new client. They're going to be asking for funding for their program. They're going to be competing with others for a contract, right? All right. Over on the left, write down the beliefs, the behaviors that sabotage the success. So just write this word down, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So over on the left, what are you proposing? What are you pitching? What are you recommending? What are you selling? What are you saying, right? All right. Over on the left, why will people say no? What are the beliefs and the behaviors that say that this is too expensive, that say that they tried this before and it didn't work, that say that this is going to take too long, right? Over on the right, we're going to put the beliefs and the behaviors that support success. Over on the left, what undermines effectiveness? Over on the right, what adds to effectiveness? So you want a real life example of this?
Yeah, let's do this.
Okay. Now, and by the way, you're going to provide this to them afterwards. So if you're thinking, Sam, I run an organization, I'm in charge of a big project, I run a department, you can share these ideas with your salespeople, with your marketing team, so they can use it in their next pitch. They can use it in their next email. They can use it in their next outreach. Sound good? Okay, here's the example, and then we're going to do it for them. In fact, I promise, Mark, I will put a sock in it, and then you can ask questions.
No. Everyone should immediately, like, your ears are perked up. You should definitely know why I started off by saying, when I heard Sam, when I got a chance to speak with you, I was like, oh my goodness, this woman is amazing. So let's get into it.
Okay, good. So here's the example. Then we'll unpack it with specific language for sales and marketing. It's so I had an opportunity to do some training for Kaiser on words to lose and words to use. I walked in 2 years after my visit as a patient, and the receptionist saw me walk in. She beckoned me over and she pointed to the words to lose, words to use that were still posted on her reception desk. And she said, Sam, she said, I used to wonder why people were so mean to me when I was so nice to them. And then I took your workshop and I saw I'm using all those words on the left all the time. Well, you should have made an appointment earlier. It's like, well, you have to go to the pharmacy to see. It's like, I can't answer that. Your doctor has to. She says, no wonder they were upset with me. I was using all those trigger words that actually set up resistance and resentment. Over on the right are words that actually set up rapport and receptivity instead of resistance and resentment. Now, Mark, you already see the process. Do you see how when we put these bullet words, resistance, resentment, now you make it alliterative, rapport, and receptivity. Everyone watching can ask their sales team, all right, going into this meeting, why will they resist? Why will they resent us? Maybe we're taking too long. You codify that. Now, over on the right, we have the solution to that problem. We have the answer to that issue, and it's alliterative. So now when you are explaining something to your team, when you're coaching your team, you can come up with these words to lose, words to use. You can make them alliterative. You have a proprietary document that you can post by their laptop before they send out an email, that they can review before they walk into a high stakes meeting. And guess what, Mark? It gets people on the same page literally and figuratively. Now they see what you're saying, and something that was wah, 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 wah is crystal clear and actionable.
Okay. There's a lot to unpack there, but I love it so much. And so just to kick off with the idea of infobesity, that is the thing that we all tend to fall into. And I think you coined that term, but the idea is that, we're just going to somehow explain or convince our way towards a sale, that we're going to rationalize it, that we're just like, if we just give you enough information, you'll trust us. And it's kind of the easiest thing for us to fall into because it's the easiest thing for us to understand, but it's not the most compelling, right?
Oh, Mark, I hope every marketer, every salesperson puts over on the left, explain. Promise you will never again try and explain your product or your program or your service or what your business does. It's infobesity. It goes in one ear, out the other. Over on the right, put ask. Now, Mark, I thought I would use a new example that you haven't heard before. Sound good?
Okay, I'm ready. I'm a little nervous, but I'm ready.
So I'm judging the dolphin tank. It's a gentler version of the shark tank. And I tell you, this woman went about 10th, and we are at the Long Beach ballroom of the convention center. It seats about 5,000 people. There's only 500 people in the room. She went last. Hardly anyone's paying attention. They've got their head down in their devices. They're talking. She was so smart. I had looked at her business plan the night before, and Mark, she's trying to get funding for a hook you put in your car to put a purse on. And I'm thinking, really? You're trying to get funding for a hook you put in your car? Here's what she did.
Okay, hold on. This, before you get into the solution, though, and the answer, I just want to say the first thing that popped into my head for the idea for a hook that you put in your car to hang your purse on is like one of those infomercials, like is opening drawers too hard for you? And it's black and white and people are throwing stuff like just throw it on your passenger seat or whatever. Like this is, I'm a dude, so maybe it's because I'm a dude, but this seems like a completely useless item, doesn't it?
You see, you're going to skepticism, right?
Yeah, but was that your first reaction when you read the brief?
Exactly. I was thinking, you've got to be kidding me. This is a waste of our time. You're never going to get money for this. And so over on the left, I hope people are thinking about, once again, this important meeting. Put yourself in the shoes of the decision maker. Why will they say, you've got to be kidding me? Why would they say this is a waste of my time? Why would they say that's not worth it or this will never work? So write that down because those are the answers to the test. So here's what she did, and then we'll unpack it so everyone watching can do it. She hauled a full-size car seat up to the front of the ballroom. Mark, you should have seen the head snapping up. It's like, what is she going to do with that, right? So she used a prop because if we're not looking, we're not listening, right? So by the time she got to the front of the room, every single person was looking at her in suspense, ready to hear what she had to say. She did not start off with an explanation. She put her purse on the seat next to her, and then she grabbed like an imaginary driving wheel, and she started off with this. Have you ever been driving along? You had to stop all of a sudden, and your purse fell off the seat, and you're scrabbling around with one hand trying to retrieve it while you're driving with the other. Imagine never having to do that again. Mark, a man in the audience stood up and he said, I'll take two, one for my wife and one with my daughter. Mark, she went from a skeptical really to I'll take two in 60 seconds. And here's what she did. Number one, what is a prop you could use to show instead of sell? Hey, if we're talking about, an app or something like that, don't just talk about the app, hold up a phone so people are picturing your point. They're seeing what you're saying. Next step, start with, have you ever questions? Have you ever had this happen? Have you ever been in this situation? Has anyone ever said this to you? And they're thinking, yes. Now say, imagine if you never had to worry about that again. Imagine if it didn't have to take that long. Imagine if it didn't have to cost that much. You are putting people in the problem of what you solve, and they're thinking, I would love to never have to worry about that again. I would love to not have to pay that much money. I would love for it not to take that long. And then you say, you don't have to imagine it. We're doing it, or this product can do that for you. And then you come in with a real life example. But once again, I promise to put a sock in it. So you're welcome to unpack why this is so different from the wah, wah, wah that's out there for a lot of people.
And this is what I wanted to talk to you about today. So this whole idea of being able to come in with this hook, being able to set the scene, we draw people in, we illustrate 1, 2, 3 problems. We say, imagine if you could have solution, solution, solution. Well, you don't have to imagine it because we're already doing it. And then you go into backstory. What an amazing framework. Like a framework that seems so simple. I feel like I should have come across this 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. Maybe I should have read some of your books because you've written a lot of books on this. And yet when I got it, I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to use that. I'm going to take that. I'm going to use that. Now, I think that's amazing. Is there any risk in anyone who knows this stuff going like, oh, they're just using the Sam Horn model?
Well, I mean, if everyone used the Sam Horn model, that would be a problem. However, I have been to it's hundreds of pitches. I have seen thousands of proposals, and most people start with explanations. It's like, we're a 501c here. Our product does this, this, this.
Yeah.
We lose people at hello if we start with information. So we're going to ask instead of inform. And would you like another couple of ways to do that?
Please, more. Just keep going. You don't have to stop for me.
Okay. And by the way, Mark, I promised myself I would use different examples than what I used at Genius Network, because you have heard those examples and I'll be glad to share them with your audience. However, I thought you would enjoy new examples. Sound good?
Always.
Okay. So over on the left, please put Russian blush.
Russian blush.
Rush and blush.
Rush and blush. Okay. So
Rush.
not like Russians who use mascara blush. That's what I thought you said. Russian blush. Okay. Rush and blush.
And over on the right, put pause and punch.
Ah, yeah.
Now, are you a Harry Potter fan by any chance?
My wife is she's a huge Potterhead. Yes.
Okay.
To the point where we travel around the world specifically for Harry Potter things.
Whoa. Okay. Well, then you can share this story with her because she will enjoy it and maybe she can use it in her own speaking and writing. Is that Arthur Levine was J.K. Rowling's editor at Scholastic. So I think I helped start and run the Maui Writers Conference for 17 years. And I introduced Arthur as one of our keynoters. He came up to me later in the halls and he said, Sam, I love the way you speak. You put space around your words. And Mark, isn't it true when we're under pressure, when we're afraid that we're going to lose people's attention, when we have only like 2 minutes or 10 minutes or something, we rush, right? We race through it, trying to get it over with or trying to like get them before we lose them, etc. Guess what? We lose them when we race through what we say because it doesn't make any sense. They can't absorb it or repeat it. So everyone from now on, do exactly what you said. Next time you start a meeting, whether it's a Zoom call in person, and it's like they say, so what do you think, Bob? It's like, Sarah, what's your opinion? Do not just jump in. Pause. Do you see how if you pause, people are going to snap up, they're going to pay attention. Now you've got their full attention. And I'm going to ask you this. What is the action you want people to take? What is the change you want them to make? And when you say that, you will highlight it by saying, of all the things we've discussed, this is the most important benefit for you. Pause, pause, pause. And then you put metrics in it. This will cut your cost in half. Pause, pause, pause. In the first 3 months, stop talking. This will retain your customers and increase customer loyalty and repeat business by 10% in the first 2 weeks. Do you see how you pause and punch instead of rush and blush? And that's a way to capture attention and keep attention.
This is not only powerful in live conversations or live meetings or from the stage, but for anyone listening who produces audio content, social content, videos, marketing, there's something that happens. We've produced thousands of projects, and I've noticed this with junior editors, especially on my team. If they were sending us content, there's this need to try and like hit a runtime or get everything in or move so quickly And there's always this part of a really fast-paced speech, video, social share, whatever it is, where it kind of just washes over you like the tide. And the content is coming so quick. There are no punches. There are no pauses. There's no music changes. There's no cues. There's nothing to help me take a moment to process what I just heard before we jump onto the next thing. And only in this moment did I realize you've articulated for me what I've not been able to share with my juniors, other than, guys, we got to add a beat here. We got to add a beat is the term we use in script writing for pause. Like, you got to add a pause, you got to add a beat, you got to have a moment. It's happening too quick. It's becoming a listicle. We do this, and we do this, and we do this, and we do this, and we also do this. And here's 10 more things we do, right? Like, it's just like, great. Like, let's just list everything out. And let's never have a music change or a music cue or a moment or a beat or what have you. And it just washes over everyone. And that's because we need that pause and punch. That is so good.
And I hope people write this down. Confident people don't rush. Isn't it true?
You have so many of these. I have notes from the other day too, where it's like, eyebrows up. What does eyebrows up mean? Like, what does that mean too?
Okay, 60-second story. And now hopefully we're embedding the craft by showing and not just telling, right? So I always start with an example, not an explanation, and then we unpack it. So 60 seconds. First year of Maui Writers Conference, we give people an opportunity to jump the chain of command and pitch directly to Ron Howard, to the publisher at Simon & Schuster. And yet, what would most of them do in their 10 minutes? They would raise their I would see the decision makers, they would get it. They're smart. 60 seconds, they got it. And yet the pitchers wouldn't stop, because doggone it, they'd rehearse this and they're going to get it all in, even if the other person wanted to ask a question. And now decision makers are smart. And Amy Poehler said, I get a little itchy if I don't have some kind of control. So look what happens when we speak for 60 seconds and we stop talking. Look who's in charge. The decision maker is. They get to ask what they want, what's top of mind for them, what's important for them, etc. So I stood in back. I'm watching these pitches, and I can predict who is getting a deal without hearing a word being said, based on one thing. Guess what? The decision maker's eyebrows. See, if we're describing our product or our program or our process and the decision maker's eyebrows are crunched up, it means they're confused, and confused people don't say yes. If their eyebrows were unmoved, it meant they were unmoved, or they'd had Botox. And if their eyebrows are up, it means they're intrigued, curious, they want to know more. That means we just got what we cared about in their mental door. So everyone watching from now on, 60 seconds, watch the eyebrows. If they're like this, put a sock in it. Let them ask a question and run the show, because now they're in charge, and they're going to like the show a lot more better when they're running the show.
So if we were to start pitching someone, start talking to someone, and we see those eyebrows are bunching up and they're kind of questioning, do we try to quickly pivot and just land the point and then throw it over to them? Or do we literally go, I'm sorry, I feel like I may be confusing the situation. Let's take a step back. And do you try to reframe, or how do you save it if you're watching the person across from you? Like, okay, eyebrows are down. Get those eyebrows up.
Mark, I'm so glad you asked that, because you know what we do? We prevent it from happening in the first place.
Yeah. Okay. That's once you're good and you're practiced and you've worked with you or whatever. But
and once again, I promised an example you haven't heard before. So here's, if people have a column right now, put elevator speech, and in the middle, it's like, aren't we taught to, I help blank do blank? That's a bore, snore, or a chore. It's predictable. People have heard it before. It's telling. It's one-way conversation. So I'm at YPO. Here's the example. And then here is a new innovative way that actually this was the top ranked technique at Inc. 500 with Seth Godin and Tim Ferriss, etc. Here we go. 60-second example. A gentleman came up to me before his session and he said, Sam, I'm going to confess something to you. I don't tell many people. He said, I'm an introvert. He said, I fly across an ocean and a continent to get here, and then I hang out in my hotel room because I just hate small talk. And he said, plus, what I do is so complex. I run this tech company in Silicon Valley. I can never get across what I do in a way people are interested. I just rather avoid it. I said, can we play? He said, sure. I said, what do you do that we can see, smell, taste, or touch? And he said something about financial software and computers and credit. I said, oh, do you make the software that makes it safe for us to buy things online? He said, yes. I said, don't tell people that. I said, because if someone says, what do you do? And you tell them what they do, they go, oh, it's the end of the conversation. We don't want to end the conversation. We want to open the conversation. So here's 3 steps from now on. You're going to introduce yourself in a way that gets eyebrows up and leads to a mutually meaningful conversation. You ready? Okay. I told him, do you know anyone, could be yourself, a friend, or a family member who buys stuff online? Do you see how we've already turned it into a dialogue instead of a monologue? And he said, Sam, that's like a 3-part question. Why a 3-part question? I said, because if you said, do you buy stuff online? Number 1, that's an interrogation. And number 2, they may say no. We've ended the conversation again. So do you see how we're giving people options, right? They can go wherever they want, and we're stacking the deck that they're familiar with what we do. So do you know anyone, could be yourself, a friend or family member, who buys stuff online? Now, I said, would you like to stack the deck that every single person you meet can relate to what you sell? He said, rhetorical question. I said, what are the 3 top online retailers right now? At the time, it was Travelocity, Amazon, and eBay. So you say, do you know anyone, could be yourself, a friend or family member, who buys stuff online, like on Amazon, eBay, or Travelocity? And they may say, well, I hate that stuff, but my wife's on Amazon all the time. She loves the free shipping. You link what you do to what they just said. Oh, I make the software that makes it safe for your wife to buy things on Amazon. Oh, Mark, look at the eyebrows. Oh, the connection. They relate to it. They remember it. And his face did something kind of weird. And I said, what are you thinking? He said, I can't wait to get home from this conference. I said, why? He said, I can finally explain to my 8-year-old son what it is that I do in a way he can understand it.
I think I need to brush up on my my elevator and intro speech, because often people in my family or my wife's friends, they will ask her, or they'll ask me how it's going or what I'm up to. I don't really like to actually talk about myself. I'm an introvert. I always find other people far more interesting than myself. So I don't really even give them a chance to like dig into it. But my wife never knows what to say. I started my agency 17 years ago. You think by now she would know exactly what to say. So what else is powerful about this, though, is once you nail this and you can become known for it, it's so much easier for people to refer you business then.
Not only does it set up a ripple effect, it sets up a resonance in the room where we can have a human conversation. Because if we or your wife said, do you know anyone who hates selling or feels that salespeople are pushy, or that, do you know anyone, could be yourself, a friend, someone at work, who really resists selling, who doesn't feel comfortable selling? Oh, that's me. Oh, that's my brother. He says, and now you may say, what if? What if that person could actually feel an integrity when they sell things? What if that person could actually figure out how what they're offering is to someone's advantage, and they can bring it up in a way they have a genuine connection? So imagine if, what if, and once again, it's a dialogue, not a monologue. And you feel this isn't hype, Mark. You have benefited people. Your work makes a difference. And all we're doing is asking if people know someone who has struggling with that, is not comfortable with that, is for some reason resisting that. And we're letting them know what you do that is different from their norm, that's serving as a barrier to entry. So once again, you connect instead of have this disconnect.
I've been talking with Sam Horn, and she is the founder and CEO of the Intrigue agency, as well as the author of many, many books. Her newest I'm holding in my hand. It's called Talking on Eggshells, The Soft Skills for Hard Conversations, and especially in a world of cancel culture and I think the rise and even fall of thought leaders on social media just because of the negative backlash. I did a big push to build a personal brand that I've kind of walked away from, to be honest, because I realized I wanted to be respected but not famous. And I don't know if social media is the place to be respected but not famous. You know what I mean?
Wow. So shall we go there for a second?
Yeah, I wanted to do about my by respect not fame,
Well,
or about your book Walking on Eggshells.
here's the question on the table. How can we be on social media in a way that is additive and not ego?
Mm.
How can we be on social media? I know your mom started a writers' conference. You and I both believe in the integrity of words and in the responsibility of the platform of, if we're going to be on social media, it's not me, 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 me. It is in a way that everyone looks forward to our posts. They read our posts. They get value from our posts. So would you like to know a way to do that?
I would love to. Please help me.
Okay. It's so you know me, example first, 60-second story, and then we'll unpack it. So I am now, we closed out the Maui Writers Conference after 17 years. So now I'm with the Kauai Writers Conference. Now, you know, the writing world, there's a lot of writers, they want to write. They don't want to sell themselves, right? They don't want to self-promote. However, if they wait for a book deal, they could go their entire life without their work getting any visibility or recognition or making a difference. So I did a masterclass on promotion in integrity. And so I asked them three things. Number one, where do you go that people would like to go? And I mean, they're on Kalapaki Bay. I said, so tomorrow you go down and you take a 60-second video of you walking Kalapaki Bay and what it's like waking up to those gentle ocean and what it's like being at a place that you've always wanted to go and to do something, and you share it. Now, the second thing is, who do you meet that people would like to meet? So I'm sure people watching, they go to conferences, there are keynotes, there are breakout sessions. I said to them, I said, why don't you walk up to Billy Collins, poet laureate, and say, Billy, I know you're busy. May I have 60 seconds of your time? What is one piece of advice you would give to an aspiring poet? So from now on, everyone who's watching, next conference you go to, don't just take notes. Walk up to the keynoters afterwards and say, I know you're busy, and may I have 60 seconds of your time? Now, third, what have you learned that people would like to learn? So see, we are just a genius network. What if you say, after two rising tide days, you know, here are the three top takeaways, you know, do this, do this, do this. You number, do you see how this is not me, 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 buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. No, this is, you know, wow, here's a place you may like to go. Here's someone you may like to meet. You know, here's something you may learn. And we are adding vicarious value in a way that people welcome our content, they resonate with our content, they remember it, and they're often likely to recommend it and carry it forward and become a brand ambassador for us, our organization, and what it is we're saying and selling.
Vicarious value. That one's going to stick with me for a little bit. Vicarious value. I love that. I love that. I was going to ask, and I do appreciate if you have another minute or two, because we're a little bit over, but I think listeners, you agree, this is worth spending a little bit more time on. So for your newest book, which we kind of just talked a little bit about, the idea of talking on eggshells, which is a really, I would call it a how-to guide on how to move from that left column you spoke about, the words to lose, and to move more to the right side, the words to use. But we're talking about things like, you know, how to keep cool in really heated conversations, and how to manage your expectations and emotions and mindset when you feel unseen or unheard or unappreciated, or if you're afraid to speak up, or just really great tactical areas like if you feel like someone's manipulating you, or if you have to come in contact with a bully. And so you mentioned the power of words. You mentioned my little thing about how I don't really like social media, with a great framework. But I'm curious, now that you've written the book, released the book, you're talking about the book, What's your favorite
Oh,
part?
it's like asking for my favorite child, right, Mark?
Yeah, but I also know I have 4 kids. I also know you have a favorite, right?
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm going to just go there. Is that there is a lot, and I love getting feedback about the difference it's made in someone's parenting or in their leadership or with their employees or whatever. Here's one technique I think everyone can use. So, what can we do if
Is
someone?
this your favorite?
Ooh,
I like how
you're
you
tough.
sidestepped
You
it
are
there.
tough.
You sidestepped.
Okay,
You're like, yeah, here's one we can use. Is this, come on, I want this from the
okay,
heart here.
Mark. Today it's my favorite. Ask me tomorrow, I'll have a different answer.
I'll take it.
Okay, so imagine someone accuses you of something that isn't true or accuses you of something you don't do. In the middle column, put refute. If you refute a negative accusation, you reinforce it. And I'll example and then what to say instead. I'm speaking at a leadership conference, and in the Q&A, a woman puts her hand up and she said, Sam, why are women so catty to each other? Mark, I knew if I answered that question, if I said, I don't think women are catty to each other, I'm doubling down. I'm arguing her point, right? So I Don Drapered it. Don Draper said, if you don't like what's being said, change the conversation. So I reframed instead of refuted. And here are the words to do it. Do you know what I have found? You never repeat the negative word. So now don't get mad. I am not mad. You're always late. I am not always late. Do you see how you're doubling down on the negative perception? No, you reframe it by saying, do you know what I found? I think women are real champions of each other. In fact, I wouldn't. Now, there's another thing in the middle, also put deny, because maybe someone says, you don't care about your customers. We say, we do too care about our customers. Look, we're arguing with our customer about whether we care about our customers. Instead, say these 4 words. What do you mean? What do you mean? Well, I've left 3 messages and no one's called back. Oh, the real issue. Now we can address that instead of react to the attack. So that's an example of Steve Persante, who is a publisher at Barrett Kohler, who is Publisher of the Year a few years ago. He published my Got Your Attention book. I said, Steve, what's your criteria for publishing a book? And Mark, he said 3 words: show the shift. Do you see how, if we're training our team, we are showing the shift? Words to lose, reactions; words to use, responses. These help, these hurt, these support, these sabotage, these add, these undermine. Ball's in our court to follow up.
That was my talk with Sam Horn. To wrap up, I'm going to share my 3 biggest takeaways from this talk. And don't go anywhere, because after this, I want to hear from you. Number 1, you have to engage and you have to connect right off the bat. What better way to do that than to ask relatable questions that not only evoke curiosity, but really kind of change these monologues that people tend to be on into engaging dialogues by making the complex ideas way more interesting and way more accessible by getting your audience to think about their answers to your questions. Number 2, I honestly struggle with this often, the power of simplification in communications. We want to eliminate information overload. The concept of infobesity, just getting everything out there and jamming it in, it kills clarity. It destroys pace. People stop listening. It's almost like back when I started my agency and we weren't quite as good at video as we are today, thousands of projects in. I used to find myself tuning out of what I was listening to. Have you ever found that? It's like the information is washing over you. You're not listening. It's coming too fast. There's not enough punches and pauses, as Sam would say. And we just want to avoid all of that. Keep it simple. And number 3, I just mentioned it, pause and punch. I love that technique. I love the language, the alliteration of it. It's actually something that has become internal messaging and dialogue. It's a question my team and we bring up, whether we're looking at social clips, whether we're working on scripting or messaging, whether it's me right now talking into this microphone for you, the listener. We are often talking about whether something has a pause and a punch. So there you have it. Those were my 3 biggest takeaways from this talk, but I'm curious, what were yours? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you want to get into an argument with me? No matter what, you can join the conversation by heading over to LinkedIn and sending me a direct message. Now, my name is Mark Drager. I'm the guy on LinkedIn in the black and white photo with the little blue background. Now, while you're over there, be sure to connect with Sam Horn. That's Horn. You can also follow her on Instagram at Sam Horn Intrigue. You can get a copy of her most recent books. I have a copy here I was given, Talking on Eggshells, Soft Skills for Hard Conversations, which is a very tactical book, and I love it. And if you just want to learn more about everything that Sam Horn does, you can go ahead and connect with her over on our website, samhorn.com. Now, one last thing. If you've made it this far into the show, you really should subscribe, and here is why. Every single week, I share practical strategies and tips just like the conversation Sam and I had to supercharge your business growth and to boost sales. And if that isn't a reason to subscribe, I've got nothing else for you. I think that's a good enough reason. So go ahead and, as my teenage kids would say, smash that subscribe button now. Anyway, with that, we're going to wrap up this episode. I am Mark Drager. I will catch you in the next one.